It's just pure lunacy in the Trump regime. So Donald Trump just returned to Washington, D.C. after taking yet another vacation in Florida on the taxpayer dime, where he golfed and partied with the billionaire oligarchs. As he was landing in Washington, D.C., he started making deranged social media post after deranged social media post. He also attacked President Zelensky of Ukraine and former President Biden. This as Donald Trump sent his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, to go to St. Petersburg and put his hand over his heart and essentially pledge allegiance to Vladimir Putin. Let's take a look at what Donald Trump's just been posting. He posts the following. All in caps, he goes, "The best definition of intelligence is the ability to predict the future." I mean, literally, it's the ranting and ravings of a madman. But if you want to talk about intelligence, Donald, now, when European Union ambassadors and diplomats show up in the United States, they're all using burner phones and they're preparing as if they were in an authoritarian regime, like when they visit China or when they used to visit Russia. They're getting burner phones and they're taking steps as though the United States is an adversary. That's how they're treating their visits right now. Then Donald Trump posts the following. Congratulations to Rory. What a great job he did. Tremendous courage and talent was on full display at yesterday's Masters. What a win! Exclamation point. He's referring to Rory McIlroy, who won the Masters golf event. I wouldn't exactly say courage. I mean, courage, I would use that word for somebody like President Zelensky. I would say it was a good golf match. Congratulations. But I don't know, Donald, maybe you should be addressing, I don't know, the fact that the Jewish governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was targeted for an assassination attempt and his residence was burned in an arson attack. And now we're learning that the arsonist brought a hammer to try to kill Governor Shapiro. You don't address that, huh? No thoughts on that, Donald? Well, actually, when Donald Trump was on Air Force One heading back to Washington, D.C., he was asked about the assassination attempt against Governor Shapiro of Pennsylvania. And Donald Trump doesn't say anything about it other than I just heard about it. So Donald Trump has spent the weekend watching the Masters, talking about the Masters, talking about his bogus health report. I'm going to do a whole hot take on that where it says he weighs like 230 pounds and that as evidence of his good health, he wins all of these golf tournaments. That's literally what it says on his physical that was just released. But here's what Donald Trump says when he's asked about Shapiro. Play this clip.
Mr. President, any reaction to the governor of Pennsylvania? His mansion was set on fire. Do you have any reaction?
I just heard about it. No, I have to look into it.
You got the perfect health report. Everybody in the press wants to know this. How do you do it, Mr. President? I haven't set up to 2 a.m.
Here was Donald Trump's post at 9:12 a.m. this morning. He goes, "The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war, not mine." Just pause there for a second. What a deranged thing to say. You are the leader, unfortunately, right now of the United States. You enabled Putin to do this in your first administration, but who goes, that's someone else's war, not mine. That's the mind of a malignant narcissist. Donald Trump then goes on to say, "I just got here and for years during my term had no problem in preventing it from happening." Oh, I'm sorry, that you have to be the president of the United States. You were the one who ran on that you were going to create peace in Ukraine in 24 hours. Now it's not my war. I just got here. This is again, no offense to petulant babies. This is not the behavior of a leader at any level. This is not leadership at all, yet alone the biggest position of leadership, which is in the White House. And it's not to mention that Donald Trump's a sexual predator, a felon, and someone found liable for fraud. But don't even get me started on that rant. Then Donald Trump goes on to say, "President Putin and everyone else respected your president," right? So Trump saying positive things about Putin. "I had nothing to do with this war." This is all caps. "But I'm working diligently to get the death and destruction to stop." Pause. You promised on day one that it was going to be solved. Peace in Ukraine. You said as soon as you won, there would be peace in Ukraine. And you've made things worse, exponentially worse. Then Donald Trump goes on to say, "If the 2020 presidential election was not rigged, and it was in so many ways, that horrible war would never have happened." Pause. So here we are, April 14th. Donald Trump's regime is kidnapping and disappearing migrants on the street, sending them to concentration camps in El Salvador, while then Trump takes vacations every weekend to Florida. He's whining about the 2020 election, saying that it's rigged, which it is not, saying it's not my war. I have nothing to do with any of this. And then he goes on to say, President Zelensky and crooked Joe Biden did an absolutely horrible job in allowing this travesty to begin. There are so many ways of preventing it from ever starting, but that is the past. Now we have to get it to stop and fast. So sad. What a despicable, vile piece of crap Donald Trump is. I mean, truly a piece of trash who deserves none of our respect. He is a piece of freaking trash, period, full stop. You're blaming President Zelensky and Ukraine from having their country unlawfully invaded. You despicable, vile thing, you. You get no respect from democracy-loving Americans. You piece of crap, you. Sorry, that just makes me absolutely livid. But what Donald Trump did want to talk about on the airplane while he landed was that the Masters, he loves the Masters. He loves watching golf. He loves he's so healthy. He loves watching golf. Here, play this clip.
Oh, no, I wanted to watch it.
You weren't going
You
nowhere.
knew there was no way. Even for you people, there was no way. That was it. It's one of my favorite shows ever. The Masters is, to me, maybe my favorite sporting show. And it showed, and, you know, Justin Rose was great. Look, they're great athletes under tremendous pressure. But unless you're a golfer, you don't understand it. It's 100th of an inch makes a difference between a great shot and a horrible shot. Think of it. Just a little tiny, a little small percentage of an inch. And literally, in some cases, 100th of an inch is the difference between winning and losing.
Sean, tell me to get out of here.
So you ever wake up and feel like your body just hit the snooze button on life? Yeah, same. Honestly, aging sneaks up on you in some wild ways. Whether it's a night out or a good workout, I just don't bounce back the way that I used to. One day you're full of energy, the next you're Googling how to stretch without pulling a muscle. I believe one of the best aging breakthroughs of the last decade is Qualia Senolytic, and here's why. It's designed to help your body naturally eliminate something called senescent cells, also known as zombie cells. These are the ones that just hang around after they've stopped doing their job, draining your energy and making you feel, well, old. Think joint discomfort, sluggish recovery, low energy, the whole deal. Qualia Senolytic is a groundbreaking supplement made with 9 plant-based nutrients, and you only take it 2 days a month. That's it. Since I started taking it, I felt more energized, quicker to recover from workouts, and honestly, just more like me again. Plus, Qualia's breakthrough formulation is vegan, non-GMO, and tested by leading scientists. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Meidas for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Meidas for an additional 15%. That's QUALIA life.com/Meidas, MEIDAS, for that extra 15% off. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode.
Let's talk about what Donald Trump did when he landed. He invited Nayib Bukele, the authoritarian leader from El Salvador, to the White House today, gave him a grand old welcome, a hero's welcome, one of the poorest countries in Latin America with a GDP of $28 billion, a poverty rate of about 25%, extreme poverty of about 10%. Oh, by the way, Nayib Bukele, where's your suit? I thought all the MAGA Republicans say you got to wear suit and tie in the Oval Office. You're not exactly a wartime president. I mean, Zelensky is a wartime hero. You're showing up there, bringing kidnapped Americans into your concentration camps? And this is who Donald Trump respects, one of the poorest Latin American countries? So it's like him, and Donald Trump loves Javier Milei. But yeah, we screwed over wealthy nations in Europe and our allies in Canada, wealthy allies in Canada and Australia. We attacked them, but it's good to know that Donald Trump is bros with Nayib Bukele, who has the highest incarceration rate per capita any country in the world and is an impoverished country. But let's go and pretend that El Salvador is exactly what America should be. In fact, that's what Trump is turning America into. So Kristi Noem, Donald Trump's Homeland Security Secretary who kills her dogs, who does all the cosplay photos when she showed up also to El Salvador with her $60,000 Rolex in front of like the half naked men. And she was like, we'll put you in these jail. We'll put you in this concentration camp. Here she is talking about the partnership with Bukele. That's the partnership with Bukele in the concentration camps. Here, play this clip.
Terry, this meeting between the El Salvadorian president and President Donald Trump, does that indicate that the flights will continue, that the deportation, that you guys aren't going to allow the courts to stop you?
Well, I think the conversation is going to be extremely beneficial. El Salvador has been a fantastic partner. And when I was in El Salvador visiting with President Bukele, we talked about the fact that he would accept more flights, would accept more individuals into CCOT. So I'm looking forward to that partnership continuing.
Secretary Christy Nome, thank you so much for joining the program.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence.
Appreciate it.
All right, Christy, if it's a partnership, then in these concentration camps, then partnership should be bring back the migrants like the Supreme Court ordered with Abrego Garcia. The Supreme Court ordered, I've done I've done several hot takes on it. We talked about it on Legal AF. It was a 9-0 ruling from the Supreme Court saying return Abrego Garcia, one of the migrants who was kidnapped, who was disappeared to the El Salvador concentration camp, who the Trump regime admits in their filings was sent to El Salvador in error, which now the Trump regime says they're not going to do. And here they have Stephen Miller today. This is their messaging, and I talked about it earlier in my hot takes this morning in the videos I did where they're saying, we're not following the Supreme Court's ruling saying return Abrego Garcia. In the most dystopian Orwellian way, they're now saying the Supreme Court didn't actually rule that. The Trump regime says we won. It was a 9-0 ruling that we won, saying Abrego Garcia stays in El Salvador, when literally the ruling said the opposite. It said return Abrego Garcia, facilitate his return immediately. The district court said do it immediately. Now the Trump regime's like, what are you talking about? The Supreme Court said we were the winners. They said keep Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. Here, watch this.
Your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case. Clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So he appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours.
Totally deranged. You want to see what's going on, though, in international diplomacy? You have China and Vietnam with a major diplomatic meeting today. Xi Jinping met with the leader of Vietnam. They signed dozens of cooperation deals on Monday, including on production and supply chains, as well as railway cooperation. As Chinese President Xi Jinping visit the Southeast nations, footage of these signed documents seen by Reuters showed. And then Xi Jinping talked about how they need to stand up against other unilateral bullies in the world. Goldman Sachs is saying the prospects of a recession have increased. Goldman CEO says hearing a greater sense of short-term concern from CEOs outside the U.S. Oh, and one other thing that I'll mention too is you have Donald Trump's post last night where he attacked 60 Minutes and CBS, and then directed his FCC commissioner to take away CBS's broadcast license. He said he's directing Brendan Carr to take away CBS's broadcast license because he didn't like what 60 Minutes was playing last night, the 60 Minutes show. You know what the 60 Minutes show last night was on? It had President Zelensky mourning the deaths of Ukrainian kids who were killed. That's what was on 60 Minutes. That's what triggered Donald Trump to write that message. An utterly despicable, vile, trash human being. And I'm not going to hold back my words about what I think about him and what I think about the people who surround him. Seriously. I mean, you judge for yourself based on the facts. I'm Ben Meiselas. This is the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers.
Can't get enough Meidas? Check out the Meidas Plus Substack for ad-free articles, reports, podcasts, daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, and more. Sign up for free now at MeidasPlus.com.